Picture this for a second. It's the absolute peak of summer. Maybe you just got back from a really bustling weekend farmer's market. Or hey, maybe you've had a wildly successful harvest out in your very own backyard.
So now your kitchen counter is just this beautiful, sensory explosion. It is completely overflowing with gorgeous, ripe summer fruit. We're talking sweet peaches, crisp apples, plump grapes. It's a wonderful sight, right? But there's a ticking clock that you can almost hear. In just a few days, that glorious bounty is gonna go bad. You literally can't eat it all in time, and you probably hate the idea of tossing all that hard work into the compost bin. So what do? Well, the answer might just be right outside your window. Sun-drying is this incredibly elegant, ancient solution that transforms your surplus fruit into fantastic, long-lasting treats. It is the ultimate way to save your harvest from the trash.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the agenda for today's explainer. Number 1, the benefits of sun-drying fruits. Number 2, the science and ideal fruits. 3, the step-by-step preparation process. 4, troubleshooting and testing for doneness. And finally, number 5, storing and enjoying safely.
Section 1. Benefits of sun-drying fruits. The perks of preserving.
You know, dried fruits have rightfully earned the nickname nature's candy. Think about it. When you dry a piece of fruit, you're essentially just removing the water. And what that does is it concentrates all those natural sugars and vibrant flavors into a much smaller, intensely sweet and chewy little package. It's so incredibly appealing. Whether you are snacking on it straight out of a mason jar, tossing a handful into your morning oatmeal, or baking it into some warm muffins, it's just fantastic.
But beyond that amazing concentrated flavor, the overall benefits of doing this are just huge. First off, you retain excellent nutritional value. Your fiber, calories, and most of those vital minerals stay completely intact. Plus, sun-drying is quite literally a zero-energy consumption method. You are harnessing the free power of the sun. That makes it incredibly eco-friendly. It proactively prevents food waste, and honestly, it's just extremely simple and cost-effective. There's absolutely no need to go out and buy an expensive electric dehydrator if your local weather conditions are right.
Section 2. The science and ideal fruits. How and why it works. Before we get our hands sticky with all the prep work, let's just briefly touch on the science behind this, because understanding the why makes the how so much easier and way safer. Dehydration, by definition, is simply the process of removing moisture from food to a point where bacteria, yeast, and mold just cannot grow and cause spoilage. By carefully removing that water, you halt microbial growth right in its tracks. And because you aren't cooking it at high temperatures, the calories and the fiber stay exactly the same as in the fresh fruit, just in a lighter, more compact form.
So the real trick here is picking the right candidates to put out in the sun. Fruits that naturally have high sugar and high acid content are your safest and most successful bets for outdoor sun-drying. Things like vegetables and meats, they lack that high acid and sugar profile, which makes them way too risky for sun-drying because they'll spoil fast. But let's look at the good stuff. Apples, for instance, are excellent. Just peel, core, and slice them up thin. Apricots are absolutely ideal. You just pit them, cut them in half, and lay them out with the little cavity facing up to the sky. Grapes are obviously perfect for making your own homemade raisins, and you can just leave those whole. And figs are great too. Leave the tiny ones whole and just slice the larger ones in half to speed the whole thing up.
Section 3. Step-by-step preparation process. Getting your fruit ready for the sun.
This is the really actionable part of our explainer. Getting your beautiful fruit ready to face the elements. The physical prep is straightforward, but it's incredibly critical. Step 1, gently wash your fruit in cold water to get rid of any dirt, bacteria, or bugs, and take off any stems, peels, or cores you don't want. Step 2 is huge. Slice them uniformly. If you have uniform pieces, they're going to dry at the exact same rate. You really don't want to end up with a batch where some pieces are totally brittle while others are still soggy. And step 3 is pre-treatment. You know how light-colored fruits like apples or pears turn brown super fast when you cut them? To stop that oxidation, you can pre-treat them. Just dip them in an ascorbic acid solution, which is really just pure vitamin C mixed with water, or even a fruit juice that's naturally high in vitamin C, like lemon or pineapple juice, for about 3 to 5 minutes.
And when you're deciding exactly how to cut your fruit, keep this rule of thumb in mind. Thin, peeled slices are going to dry the fastest and the most evenly, period. On the flip side, whole unpeeled fruits take the absolute longest to dry. In fact, if you're wanting to dry whole fruits that have those tough, waxy skins, think grapes, cherries, or whole berries, you actually have to use a technique called checking. Basically, you plunge the whole fruit into boiling water for about 30 to 60 seconds. The goal is just to slightly crack those tough skins, then immediately drop them into ice water to stop the cooking. That little cracking process allows the moisture trapped inside to actually escape during the long drying period outside.
I just want to pause right here to mention the authority of the information we're covering. These specific preparation methods, the checking times, the pre-treatment guidelines, they aren't just guesses. They're derived directly from the cooperative extension services of major agricultural universities. So these steps are strictly backed by rigorous food safety science, meaning you can rest totally assured that you're doing this safely.
Okay, let's talk about the weather because 86 degrees Fahrenheit is your magic number. That is the absolute minimum outdoor temperature required to safely sun-dry fruit without the risk of spoilage taking over before the drying even finishes. Let's detail the strict environmental checklist you need for outdoor success. Like we said, you need a minimum of 86 degrees Fahrenheit, though honestly climbing over 100 degrees is even better if you can get it. You need relative humidity to be below 60%. If it's too humid, the moisture simply won't leave the fruit. It has nowhere to go. You want hot, dry, and breezy conditions because a gentle breeze literally helps carry the moist air away from the surface of the fruit. And lastly, you need several consecutive days of uninterrupted sunshine. Uncontrollable weather is without a doubt the biggest risk in this entire process. So, assuming the weather is perfect, let's look at the ideal, expert-recommended tray setup. You're going to want to place food-safe screens, like stainless steel, Teflon-coated fiberglass, or food-grade plastic, up on blocks. This allows air to circulate freely underneath the fruit. One big rule here, never use galvanized metal or copper screens, because they can leave harmful residues or destroy the nutrients in your food. Set those blocked-up trays right over a concrete driveway or a reflective surface, like a sheet of aluminum foil. That reflection from below actually bounces heat back up and significantly increases your drying temperature. Finally, drape cheesecloth over the trays, but keep it raised off the surface so it doesn't physically touch the fruit. That's your protective barrier against birds and hungry insects.
Section 4. Troubleshooting and testing doneness. Managing risks and knowing when it's ready. Nature is wildly unpredictable. So what exactly happens when the sun goes down? Well, the cool night air and evening dew can completely ruin all your progress. That condensation can add moisture right back into your partially dried food, which slows down the process and basically rolls out the red carpet for mold. Because of this, you absolutely must bring your trays under a shelter or completely indoors every single evening, no exceptions.
Now, let's say your fruit has spent a few days outside and it finally appears dry. There's one vital, mandatory step you have to take before packing it away into your pantry, and that is pasteurization. Even with that cheesecloth cover we talked about, insects are incredibly crafty. To destroy any potential insect eggs that might be hitching a ride on your harvest, you have to pasteurize. Don't worry, it's easy. Just confidently choose one of two options. The freezer method, seal the fruit in freezer bags and keep it at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below for at least 48 hours. Or you can use the oven method. Place the dried fruit in a single layer on a tray and heat it in your oven, preheated to 160 degrees Fahrenheit for just 30 minutes.
But wait, how do you actually know it's fully done and ready to be pasteurized in the first place? For this, you really have to rely on your senses. Take a few cooled pieces of fruit and cut them right in half. The fruit is officially done when it feels pliable and leathery, with absolutely no visible moisture pockets or wet spots in the center. If you squeeze it, nothing wet should ooze out. If you fold a piece in half, it shouldn't stick to itself. But remember, we generally eat dried fruits exactly as they are, without rehydrating them, so please do not dehydrate them to the point of brittleness, where they shatter like glass. You are aiming for a chewy, suede-like texture.
Section 5. Storing and enjoying safely. Conditioning and long-term storage.
We've reached the final stage. Let's talk about long-term storage and a clever little step called conditioning. See, when you first take your fruit off the drying trays, the remaining moisture might not be distributed equally among all the pieces. A larger piece might be a tiny bit wetter than a smaller one. To fix this and build a perfect end product, you condition it for 7 to 10 days. On day 1, pack the cooled, dried fruit loosely into sealed glass jars. Then, from days 2 through 9, just give those jars a good shake once a day to separate the pieces. While you're shaking, look really closely at the glass. If you see any condensation or fog on the inside of the jar, the fruit isn't dry enough yet and needs to go back out into the sun or into an oven. But if the glass stays perfectly dry, by day 10, the moisture will have naturally equalized among all the pieces, which significantly reduces the risk of mold later on.
Once it's conditioned, the ambient temperature in your house directly impacts the longevity of all your hard work. Always pack your conditioned fruit into clean, moisture vapor-resistant containers. If you store those containers in a cool, dry, dark place, somewhere around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, your dried fruit can easily last up to a full year. If you just keep it at normal room temperature, around 80 degrees, it's going to maintain its peak quality for about 6 months. And hey, for even longer storage, you can simply pop those packed containers right into your freezer.
This brings us to a final and incredibly important note for this explainer. Always use your personal judgment regarding your own local climate variations, humidity levels, and food safety standards when you're sun-drying. If you happen to live in a highly humid or really rainy environment, sun-drying outdoors simply might not be safe for you, and an indoor electric dehydrator is going to be your best friend. But if the weather conditions are right where you are, harnessing the sun is just a magical, deeply rewarding process. So I'll leave you with this. Looking at that overflowing kitchen counter today, what fruits are you going to save from the compost bin and transform into nature's candy first?